New Garnier Men Acno Fight Gentle Cleanser. ये है gentle on skin, tough on pimples.
Number crunchers assemble for This Is the Day cricket and calculators unite. As much of an eye on the action as there will be on the Excel sheets, the pens at the handy, because England's heist against New Zealand last night means Pakistan have a sliver of hope. The door is just about open. Can they break through and force their way into the semi-finals? Pakistan versus Sri Lanka is the final game in Super 8's Group 2, and that is where our attention lies. This Friday evening on ESPN Cricket 4 Timeout, powered by Garnier Men. Good evening, Varun. A game that has everyone exciting. Do you have your calculators handy?
Yeah, you guys have done the calculation for me.
I have. There'll be more complicated Excel sheets coming in the second innings. As we also say good evening to Urooj Mumtaz. Urooj, do I dare say those three words?
You dare not.
So then you do.
I said them myself yesterday, so you can go ahead and repeat them. I'd be the first to say them. But yeah, number crunching's been done. Like you said, the stars need to align, and Pakistan need to play the perfect game to create the perfect storm.
Yeah, and step number one has been taken, at least as far as what you said last night when you were looking ahead to this game. You felt Pakistan's best chance of the margin that's required would be to bat first, and Sri Lanka, after winning the toss, have let Pakistan do that.
Yeah, and I said because of Pakistan's form, yes, in a game where net run rate is involved, where there might be rain, you always prefer knowing what you're chasing. But just looking at Pakistan's two chases, Netherlands barely made it to 148, were bowled out for 114 against India, and they've scored runs while they've batted first. And that's where I feel that was their best chance to get beyond or north of 180, 190. Look at that. And for that, they'll need to make some personnel changes. I said, again, at that show that you said that for me, I think Babar misses out in this one. And they slot in another batter, whether it's Nafi or Farveez Maharoof, and everyone goes hard. Because in the chase, Pakistan does falter. And I don't see them chasing down at 10 or 12 runs in over if Sri Lanka were to get 140, 150. Hence why, for me, the toss probably a great opportunity for big runs on the board.
Yes, and the toss that way has gone your way, Urooj, and not the way of the Pakistan captain, because Salman Agha said at the toss that he would have wanted to bowl first and have a target to chase down. Let's take our viewers through that equation just to spell it out. The task at hand for Pakistan. One look at the points table, and that net run rate is significantly behind that of New Zealand's. Not only do Pakistan need the win today, they need to win, now that they are batting first, by a margin of around 63 to 65 runs or upwards. If they score around 150, 63 will do the trick. If they score close to 200, 65 the margin extends to. That is the lookout for Pakistan this evening in Pallekele, where they will bat first. And we can also welcome on the show our friend from Sri Lanka, Farveez Maharoof, has joined us right in time, just after the toss. Farveez, we know Sri Lanka love their cricket. Sri Lankan fans love their cricket. Are they almost hoping for Pakistan to win so that they get to see semi-finals action in Colombo?
Yeah, that's the biggest positive. We want Pakistan to win, simply that we host the semi-final on the 4th. So that's something that I'm sure the economy minister will be hoping for. And on a serious note, I just hope that Pakistan goes through. I mean, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, shares a lot of good ties in the recent past as well as in the past. So I reckon it's all to play for. But since Pakistan is batting first, I reckon they've got to be really careful not to go hard too early. They need to make sure that they have a good space to hurt the Sri Lankans. The latter part, Sri Lankan comes into the game as underdogs, I would say, and also confidence will be jolted. And some of the players are playing for their careers, so it's a lot of pressure on Sri Lanka. But on the Pakistan side, it's just about making sure they have a good base and then have a good launching pad in the middle as well as in the depth.
Yes, and I hope through this evening, Farveez, at least for the initial part of it, you will allow me to focus on the Pakistan side of things, given the context. There are more conversations to be had around Sri Lanka, and we have banked them for later on this evening. But it is a tall order in front of Pakistan. It is a big victory margin, a size that they've actually never achieved against a full member team at the Men's T20 World Cup. But when you're short on hope, you do, in the subcontinent at least, like going into omens. And what better omen than what we've dug up about a match involving these two teams from 30 years ago. And it's not the tournament Sri Lanka remember from 30 years ago, but it is instead one that took place in October. This is a quadrangular held in Kenya, Kenya were there, South Africa were already in the final, and this was the last league stage game of that competition. Known best for Shahid Afridi smashing what remained for the longest time the fastest 100 in all men's ODIs. And that bottom figure is what should excite you. Look at those names, of course, Afridi, Anwar, Jayasuriya, Murli, Aravinda, Arjuna, Vakar, Saklen. But Sri Lanka needed to reach 290 to make their way to the final, and they missed out by 1 run, and then Pakistan went to the final. Varun Aaron.
I think it's all in that scorecard, Yash. Look at those names, like you said, Shahid Afridi, Saeed Anwar, Waqar Younis, Sakleen Mushtaq. Those kind of names do not exist in the Pakistan team at the moment. That kind of talent does not exist in Pakistan at the moment. So, yes, back then, Pakistan were always that team that could pull a rabbit out of the hat, could create miracles on the field just with the personnel they have. But for this unit, with the way they have played, especially the batting unit, with the way they have appeared in this World Cup, it looks very tough for me.
I was hoping to incite some sense of optimism after that graphic came up, but you have taken us into the rather harsher reality of the present. But Urooj, that was one memorable game. Shahid Afridi, a young teenager, hardly ever played. I like my quizzes. Do you know whose bat he was using that day?
Saeed Anwar's?
It's actually part of folklore. It was a bat that was gifted to Waqar Younis by Sachin Tendulkar. And then Shahid Afridi joins the Pakistan team last minute, flown in from the Caribbean to join the squad. And he didn't have a bat, and Waqar Younis said, you know what, take this. And Shahid Afridi has maintained that he has kept that bat very safely. Did the 37-ball 100 and didn't use it anymore. That is me done with...
Add another name to that, Sachin Tendulkar.
Yeah. What times they were. Very different times. They were the best of times. But let's get back to the present as we await team news from Pakistan. Farveez talks about the kind of plans Pakistan would need. Urooj, now you know that going into this, for that 63, 65 run margin, you'd think you need at least a 160, 180, 200. What is the marker Pakistan will set as, say, a bare minimum we need to be in the hunt?
I think 180. Now, Pallekele has produced almost two kinds of surfaces. I guess the England-Sri Lanka game is probably not the measure of the wicket, but I thought Sri Lanka batted really poorly on that game. But Pallekele has put up big scores in terms of 225 Sri Lanka in their opening game, 180 Australia as well. So it depends on the surface, but Pakistan will have to look at 180 for their spinners and their bowling contingent to then put a hold on Sri Lanka. Now, Sri Lanka's last two batting innings chasing have obviously been very, very low score. So Pakistan can derive a lot of optimism, a lot of motivation from there, but they still will have to get north of 180. Now, hoping this is a good track and hoping they've got the right personnel in place. Yes, I agree with Farveez that they still have to be smart about how this approach is, because in trying to get a big score, you don't want to get bundled out for 120, 130 yourself. But sort of have that left-right combination going, pick your balls wisely, and have that ultra aggressive intent with a little bit of smart that Mike Hesson asked for, which is we yet haven't seen in this tournament. So like I said, they'll have to play the perfect game with everything falling into place. But I still believe north of 180 gives them that cushion to then bowl out Sri Lanka if there are a few batting partnerships from the opposite end.
All right, you're looking for the perfect game. You also have maintained that they haven't played their perfect 11. There is so much intrigue around the composition of this Pakistan 11, given the equation. And my oh my, they are ringing in the changes for this game that has everything riding on it. 3 changes, no Babar Azam, Khwaja Nafe comes in. Saim Ayub goes out, as does Salman Mirza, and in come Naseem Shah and Abrar Ahmed. Naseem Shah, who hasn't played a game this tournament, Abrar Ahmed, who was dropped after the India game and hadn't featured since. The team sheet also says Fakhar Zaman at the top. Varun Aaron.
This finally reads that Mike Hesson has had his way in picking this team, because this is a team that should have played from day one, especially Naseem Shah coming in, somebody who's so talented, gets the ball back into the righty, especially goes away from the lefty at serious pace. Abrar Ahmed again, a very, very smart bowler. Khwaja Nafe, just that infusion of youth they needed instead of Babar Azam. Great decision by not having Babar Azam in this team, especially for this game.
Yeah, Babar Azam is a big point of conversation, of course. But Urooj, before we go into the reasoning behind that, the inclusion of Naseem, Abrar, you of course have been crying out for Abrar to be part of this side, but Naseem coming in for the first time this tournament.
It's a difficult one because obviously it's a must-win game. You've got all the stakes sort of against you. But I said it from day one. Naseem, in terms of recent form at the ILT20 against Australia, even in Sri Lanka early in January, Naseem I thought was really really good. So his build-up to this was very good. But obviously they chopped and changed. But I like this two premier fast bowlers in terms of wicket-taking ability and Abrar. At one point in time, he had the highest amount of air miles with the warmest backside on the bench. And similar was the story in this World Cup for reasons that I completely baffle me. So it's a must-win game on a surface that will offer turn. Pakistan have obviously picked up 30 wickets with turn. Usman and Abrar bowling in tandem will be tough ask for Sri Lanka. So those are a couple of great changes. The big name missing out, Babar Azam. And I've again said this before, we have a massive problem sometimes or almost fixed in our ways where reputations precede form. And that's where I feel that Babar Azam probably played a little bit more than he should have. He needs to evolve with the current times, where the modern T20 version is, and he is lacking behind. And the strike rates of this tournament, or for that matter, for the last 1 year, will tell you that story. So I like this inclusion, and I love Fakhar batting in the top three.
Yes. Let's go straight there because, as you point out, the numbers tell a story. Gaurav Sundararaman, a senior T20 analyst, isn't on the show today, but he has left his print on the show by digging this out. And I want all of you to take a look at it because these are Pakistan's scoring rates at this World Cup with Babar at the crease on the left of your screen and without Babar. And you notice how in most of their games, you can take the exception of USA, which was a game where they did bat fast all through, and the India game, which was a batting blowout. Everywhere you see the stark difference. And Farveez Maharoof, a difference of 1.5 runs per over with and without a batter at the crease, tells a story to you.
Indeed does, unfortunately. I'm a big fan of Babar Azam, but as many of the experts have said on this show as well as in the outside noise, that the game has evolved so much, but not so much Babar Azam lifting up his game. So this change was calling for a while, and I'm on the Pakistan perspective, I think they have done the right call by dropping Babar Azam to this game, and it's up to Babar now to go back to franchise cricket or whatever cricket he's going to play, to up his level and evolve his T20 game so that he can come back to the mix in the Pakistan side, because I just still feel that he has a lot of cricket left in him playing for Pakistan.
But Yash and I think Farveez and Urooj, this was Babar's chance to show that he has a new game. He was obviously left out of the side for quite some time. He had an opportunity to go back to the drawing board, see what he can do differently. But he's come back with the same version he left the team with. So I don't think it goes anywhere from here. Because generally at an international level, if you make a comeback, you've got to show some signs. Again, performance is something which you don't have much control of, but your attitude and your intent is something which you totally have control over. And I think Babar Azam has completely lacked intent.
Yeah, and Urooj, just to close this thread out, I know it's hard to predict anything in this game, in particular with Pakistan selections, but could this possibly be the final statement on Babar Azam as a T20I cricketer for now?
Most likely, and again, Babar fans will not like this, but like Varun said, and I agree with him, there has to be a clear difference in the way you approach the game. That has to come primarily with your skill set, whether you evolved in that or not, whether you came with different shots in terms of maximizing your run opportunity, and more importantly, your boundary getting ability. That's where Babar was lacking. We didn't see that because every time Pakistan found themselves in a spot of bother where the run rate slowed down when Babar was at the crease, as your numbers tell us as well. The shots that he played was almost a get out of jail shot, which was more almost like a blind swipe or throw your bat at, as opposed to getting into a good position and eyeing that boundary, which seemed like something that he has now produced as part of his repertoire. So that for me is a massive concern for somebody as a caliber and the experience and the stature of Babar Azam to be left out almost once, and then not obviously coming fruitful with terms of that intent, that short selection, and that overall encompassing T20 batter. And we've seen the greats go through this. We've seen the greats, I don't need to name many, but we've seen the greats who don't need to prove anything go through this when they were up against the wall in the T20 version, and they came out as better versions of themselves in the T20 format. And I'm afraid Babar's failed to do so. So you never know. This could be the final nail in the coffin for Babar's T20 career.
Yeah. A big statement with the most prolific batter in the history of men's T20I is not getting a spot as Pakistan fight to keep their World Cup alive. Instead, the focus will now shift on the most prolific batter of this tournament. Sahibzada Farhan is the highest scorer as things stand, and he is the player we focus on our match-ready face with Ghana Men Acne Fight Gentle Cleanser. Right, Sahibzada Farhan with 283 runs behind his belt, a score in pretty much every game this World Cup, barring the one against India. And Varun, he has pretty much single-handedly kept that Pakistan batting going.
Absolutely. And again, we talk about approach, we talk about intent, and that's what he's shown up top. That's exactly where you have to be in this current T20 scenario. Again, over-dependence on Sahibzada Farhan from the Pakistani team. But today is that day where he really has to come good. India was that game again where he had to come good, because winning against India would have meant so much for Pakistan. Again, today, crunch game. I would completely back him to come good today.
Farveez, there's not been any of the usual questions, the questions that may surround some of the Pakistan batters, Babar Azam, Salman Aga, none of those have applied to Sahibzada Farhan. When you look at his batting and the task at hand for Pakistan and put it against what Sri Lanka are likely to pose in front of them, what is the game plan for Farhan? How do you expect him to go?
As simple as what I said in the beginning. Just don't go too hard, too early. Just take your little time. And then Pallekele is a pitch. It gets better and better for batting under light. I mean, yes, day games sometimes can be a bit tricky, especially the game against Sri Lanka, England. It was stopping a little bit, but evening games it becomes such a good pitch to bat on. So I'm not too sure whether it's going to play in a new pitch or not. But generally, the talk is that if the pitch is good, pitch is hard, and the runs to be made. So I reckon if Farhan can give a little time for him to get used to the conditions, he could really seriously hurt this Sri Lanka side. Because remember, they are going with only 4 frontline bowlers and 3 part-time bowlers. So those are 4 overs where Pakistan can hurt Sri Lanka.
All right, Urooj, given the task at hand, how important is it also to have conversations around the lines of not getting out of hand? Because as Farveez points out, you have to aim high in this game, but you also have to dabble the balance, because a lot of times teams, when they aim too high in T20 cricket, can end up having blowouts. So how does that balance work?
Obviously, they'll have done what history in terms of this World Cup at this venue has presented and what these surfaces might have played like. They will have a ballpark figure in mind around the 170, 180 mark in terms of just pushing in terms of that margin that they need to get. But what the surface is like in the first 6 overs, they'll have to assess. Maybe it's a 160 surface, and that also means for the opposition. Yes, Farveez makes a point where it might be slightly better under lights, but Pakistan's bowling looks a proper complete bowling unit, and they've done well as a bowling contingent, especially the spin department. So it'll be very important to not go all gung-ho approach in terms of assess where this goes. And I go back to Sahibzada Farhan again, one of the games where the wicket was slightly tricky up front. He said that they did have that conversation, if the captain was in batting with him at that point, as to let's assess, let's play this period out, because Farhan in particular and some of the middle order batsmen also in particular have that boundary hitting ability where they can just take a little bit of time, maybe see 1 or 2 deliveries before then they go for that big shot for that boundary. So I just feel they'll have to be a little bit smart about it and assess as you go, and as well as keeping that big 65-run margin in their head.
What is the total you're looking for as Pakistan? I know it's a little counterintuitive. You don't walk out batting first with a set total in mind, but is there a bare minimum you're setting?
Yes, according to me, today is one of those days where, as Pakistan, you press that afterburner. You either crash and burn or you sail into the sunset. There's no 2 ways about it. There's no half measures today. I think Pakistan, the reason why their cricket is where it is and why their batting is where it is because of too many half measures, too many calculations, too many a time they've thought, you know what, we'll accelerate now, we'll play this player here, we'll anchor the innings. But today is one day where Pakistan actually have the freedom to express themselves. Again, coming back to that match you showed us long time ago, Shahid Afridi got that 100 in about 40, 30 odd balls, not because he was thinking I'm going to take a half measure. It's because he had complete belief and conviction that he is going to chase that down, or he's going to set that target, and that's what Pakistan have to have today. Go hard or go home.
Right, Urooj, Fakhar Zaman, he is carded as the opener at least, and that is a role he hasn't played much. If you look at this World Cup cycle, barring a few outings in the Asia Cup and a few outside of that, Fakhar Zaman, when he's played, has largely been used at 3, 4, 5. So the role of Fakhar Zaman and how you expect him to go in what is now a challenge for him, having not opened for a while.
But I think opening comes to him naturally. He opens for his franchise team. Even for the longest, he used to still bat at 3. And a lot of the times, Pakistan would be 1 down within no time. So very recently, Asia Cup is where he actually got started in 5. Normally, he would still be around the 3 or 4 and would still get in early. He can hit the spinners. He likes the pace coming on as well. He's not afraid to use his feet. And he's one of those, and I say this very, very carefully, but I say it because he's one of those. He's also at the back end of his career. So this could be the innings of a lifetime that he can play. He's obviously smart in terms of picking up length because he's very predominantly leg side when the Sri Lankan spinners coming into play. But he'll have to navigate that. But for him, I think opening or batting at 3 comes to him very naturally. So it shouldn't. I don't think adjusting should be a problem to him.
It is one of his less preferred opponents, to say that, Farveez, because Sri Lanka have kept Fakhar down to less than 100 runs in 11 previous outings. What's the biggest challenge for Fakhar Zaman facing this attack?
I think Dushman Chamir up front, swinging the ball back in, trying to hit his front pad. That will be the game plan for Sri Lanka. And looking at the Sri Lankan side, I think Dushman Chamir and Mahesh Teesh are the 2 wicket takers, and they got Dunitwel Lalage and Dilshan Marusanka as other 2 bowlers. So I think these 4 bowlers got to stand up to try and restrict Pakistan below par score. When I say below par, usually if the pitch is good, if conditions are good, par is about 180. And as I said in the before, the 4 overs of the part-timers, that's where Pakistan, if they do the calculation right, if they're tactically right, that 4 overs can really hurt Sri Lanka.
All right, let us confirm what the Sri Lankan lineup is. And if you've been waiting, apologies, because there was more focus on Pakistan. But this is how Sri Lanka line up for their last game. They have put Kusal Mendis and Dushan Hemantha on the bench, and in comes Kamil Mishara, who was their opener of choice earlier in the competition, and a first game of this World Cup for Janit Liyanage. Farveez.
Yeah, Kusal Mendis is a forced change. Yash was injured in the last game. I mean, he was injured before that, in the England game, but they forced him and somehow patched him up to play the New Zealand game, and they just, he's not right to play this game. That's why Kamil Mishara gets a break. And Janit Liyanage comes in for Dushan Hemantha. I mean, I've been saying this, Sri Lanka should have gone 7-4 option, have 4 overs of part-timers going forward, because Sri Lanka needs that cushion with 7 batters going to this game, especially when Manidu Hasaranga is not in the side. Not having 7 batters, it's a bit of a risk that Sri Lanka took, and they paid the price by losing to England and New Zealand. So I'm finally happy that they are going 7-4. Decent side. As I said, some players are playing for their careers. Yeah, it's under pressure for a while. So Sri Lankans, when they are on the receiving end, when the players are under pressure, this is where sometimes they can come better. So again, it can be good, it can be really bad. So one of those days and very unpredictable.
Yeah, and it's important to point out those stakes, because while they had a good start to this tournament, they beat Australia. It has ended up being a similar tale to what we saw at the Asia Cup, Farveez, where it was such an impressive group stage campaign, and yet the Super Fours finished with 3 defeats in 3 games. What is the risk for Sri Lanka and those players and the leadership if this Super 8's campaign also ends without a win?
Yeah, as I said, some of the players are under the chopping block, so they have to make sure they come up with their goods. And it's a long-term process. Now, once Sri Lanka plays the last game today, it's a 2-year cycle for the next World Cup. So Sri Lanka should really think of who to replace, whom not to replace, whom to continue, and who are the new players going to blood in, and the coaching staff. So these are the things that in the next week or so we'll have a clear idea. But again, I mean, Sri Lanka, that's a disappointment, isn't it? I mean, it's not in the last year, even in the last couple of years. The hopes are high, performing well, and all of a sudden, a couple of games playing bad, and the confidence goes haywire, and they're under pressure. So going into this game, the media, the social media have been in their cases. Lots have been spoken of, lots been written off. So it's the end of the day for the players is going out there and expressing themselves and making sure they're entertaining as much as possible, because we are in entertainment business. You've got to make sure that you go out there all guns blazing.
Yeah, we have banked a more thorough Sri Lanka tournament review with Farveez for later in the evening, but that number on the screen makes me want to ask you a question, Farveez. And I know the change today is a forced one with Kusal Mendes' fitness, but you look through the opening and it has shuffled throughout this World Cup. Started with Nisanka Mishara. For the next two games, it was Nisanka Pereira. Then went back to Nisanka Mishara with Pereira dropped. And then in the last game, it was Nisanka and Kusal Mendes with Charit Asalanka coming in at number 3. We have spoken regularly over the past year about Sri Lanka being top heavy, the underbelly, the soft underbelly of the middle order. Does it surprise you that there is a lack of consistency or clarity in the decision making with the strength at the top 3?
A player's perspective, they like to have the clarity, but the problem is in the player, you have the clarity as players, but if you don't perform, you're going to get dropped. So right throughout the campaign, the openers, apart from Pathum Nissank, have been a disappointment. It's just no second way about it. So that's why I said, it's another opportunity for young Kamil Mishara, spoken a lot of, but he promised a lot, but unfortunately in the World Cup he just couldn't perform. So it's another opportunity. There was another talk that Kusal Janit Pereira might go in this game instead of Kamil Mishara. So if Kamil Mishara is playing, Kusal Janit Pereira is not playing, who's at the latter end of his career, that itself gives you a message. So overall, it's for the players up to now to grab these opportunities going forward.
All right. A bit more on the Sri Lanka World Cup story and where they go ahead later this evening with Farveez Maharoof. I have also shared a version of those questions with Urooj Mumtaz, but we'll hope that does not come into play, because that will mean we'll have had a much more fun game to uncap at the end of this night. Urooj, Pakistan almost ready to bat. Let's get into predictions. Let's start with the neutral, Varun Aaron.
Think Pakistan. You want power play predictions or
no? The total, the innings total.
185.
185, and will that be enough for the margin?
That will not be enough.
Okay, Farveez.
I'm going to give two options here. Either Pakistan all out for 125.
Farveez, come on, Farveez. One option.
Going hard too early. Let me hear me out. Or else they're going to make a 195.
Okay, so a bit of all or nothing, says Farveez. We will allow you to sit on the fence for now. I'll ask for something more definitive at half-time, Farveez. Urooj, come on. What's the total?
Bang or bust is always going to be on the card. So the other option's always there, the bust one. But I think if they go bang, around the 190 mark is what they should aim to get. And with the batting line they're playing, I think there's a real chance here. So 190.
Yeah, I'll remind you all that the match we teed up earlier, that throwback game from 1996, saw Pakistan score 371, which at the time was the second highest total in men's ODIs. So if they can do something similar for a T20 scope, I think we'll have a game on and the margin will be on, but we will leave it here. This is going to be an exciting evening. Urooj, Farveez, thank you so much for kicking things off. We will look forward to your company at halftime as well. Varun, thank you. See you in just a bit. We will be back at halftime in this all-important game where Pakistan are looking for a massive victory to put New Zealand out of the semis and go through themselves. So see you then on ESPN Cricket for Timeout, powered by Garnier Men.
New Garnier Men Acno Fight Gentle Cleanser. ये है gentle on skin,